Welcome to the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Serenitas, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, WEEI's John Lyons. Patriots with a 31-13 win over the Tennessee Titans to complete the three-game road sweep. First time that they have won three road games in a row, I believe since like 1961, John. The last time they won three road games in a row was the 85 playoff run where they got to the Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl appearance. It didn't start off well. They fell behind early 10-3. Defense struggled out of the gate. Cam Ward shredded them early, and really, he shredded them throughout the first half. But then Drake May and the offense got going. They started to figure it out defensively. They went on to outscore Tennessee 28-3 the rest of the way in a convincing win, and I guess we could say Mike Vrabel got his revenge.
Yeah, I mean, in the first quarter, the Patriots made DK look like, Justin Jefferson, and then they kind of settled in at that point. And look, they started off kind of sluggish in this game, but to me, what they did in that late second quarter, early third quarter, they did so many times in the dynasty years, and what really sets teams that are pretty. Got me?
I got you.
Okay, so teams like to get that double score executed where you have the touchdown. Well, first of all, they had two touchdowns to end the second quarter, but you have that touchdown right before halftime. Tennessee just kind of runs out the clock, which was a little weird. Then you have the touchdown to start the third quarter. That 12-play, 88-yard drive took 7.5 minutes off the clock. And then Cam Ward inexplicably drops the ball and you get a fumble recovery touchdown. But it's just, that's the type of thing that good teams are able to do to separate themselves, or you don't start the game off well. And that's something still too, especially defensively, they're going to have to fix. You and I have talked about it before, but again, that end of second quarter, early third quarter. I mean, how many times in the last 3-4 years, John, have we seen them fail in those situations? And today, they executed it pretty much perfectly. They get a defensive stop to end the first half, then a touchdown and a defensive touchdown open the second. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
No, you can. And Drake May had another great day, by the way. Again, they collectively got off to a slow start, but he turned it on, and he ended up finishing in the Patriots communication department, put this out, that he set a franchise record today for the highest completion percentage in a single game, minimum 20 attempts, with a 91.3 completion percentage rate today at Tennessee. The previous record was held by the great Tom Brady at 88.5 against the Jaguars, if I could read, on December 27th, 2009. Look, here's the thing with Drake, right? Like, they came out running the football. So I think part of the reason he kind of came out of the gates a little slow in terms of throwing the football was the fact that McDaniels obviously said to himself, you know what? Yeah, we know they're better against the run than in the pass. Yes, we know they have Jeffrey Simmons, but we're going to make a concerted effort to run the football. And I think what you saw what the Patriots were doing there is they made a decision to keep it simple in the run game, get Ramondre Stevenson going, put the ball in his hands, set a physical tone. They did that, and then they were able to work the passing game in, and then eventually Drake May got into a rhythm. But I want to get to May in a second. I want to start off with them coming out and showing this commitment to the running game. Were you surprised by that? And what did you think of that?
Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson had 38 yards rushing on the first 4 plays of the game. And that 14-yard run on the second snap really stood out to me with not just how they blocked it up, but for the first time, it felt like since week 2 against Miami, Stevenson was running hard and breaking tackles and getting yards after contact. And we saw, especially once he started fumbling the ball in that Pittsburgh game, it was a lot of he was getting hit and just going down right away. And I think maybe some of that was he was worried about fumbling. I'm not sure. It feels like that's kind of what it was. But the offensive line, I felt blocked much better in the run game today than they have the past few weeks. But it felt like Stevenson, from a yards after contact perspective, this was the best he played since that Miami game in week 2. So you put those two things together, and that's why you get, 38 yards rushing on the first 4 plays. You have a game where, what would they run for? 175 yards today? I mean, they ran the ball really effectively, especially with Stevenson. I thought Morgan Moses played really well today, right? They ran around the right side multiple times. I mentioned that second snap, that first 14-yard run. Stevenson had a touchdown run where Moses sealed off the edge really nicely. So I thought Moses played really well. The offensive line as a whole run blocked well, but Stevenson also ran hard as well, which was nice to see.
Willem checks in. Good win again. Couldn't catch it, but we'll get the highlights. Willem is in Connecticut, of course. He also goes on to add Pats and UConn both now 5-2. Wilton High School, that's right, is 5-0. They've been a nice story in Connecticut, considering the fact that they've had a turnaround season. All is good in New England football, in the New England football landscape. Depends who you ask, Willem. I think if you ask the folks in Chestnut Hill, the folks in Amherst, they might not agree with you. But if you're a Pats fan, a UConn fan, it is indeed a good week.
I can't believe, too, I know this is the Patriots post-game show, John. I can't believe UMass lost that game. Like,
the way they did, John. You and I have both coached, and I think, look, I've been a fierce defender of Joe Harris-Simiak all season. I don't want to get off track here to your point, but that to me is inexcusable to lose the game the way they did with under a minute left. You intercept that pass, you're up 21-20, you end up losing 28-21. It's just inexcusable to me. And ultimately, and I've always been someone who defends coaches to a fault a lot of times. Maybe, obviously, I am one. I'm sensitive to the cause. I get it. We both have coached for a long time. We know how hard it is. All that being said, that loss yesterday is all on the coaches and the way that game was managed down the stretch. And it's too bad, because had they won that game, I think it could have served as a springboard. Now it could potentially derail them. We do have another comment coming in, and Willem says it's a beautiful fall day. It is indeed. Getting back to Drake May in terms of his stat line, you mentioned the Patriots rushed for 175 yards. Drake May, 21 of 23, 222 yards, 2 touchdown passes, passer rating of 135.9. I think the biggest takeaway from his season thus far, to me, is the efficiency, John, especially the last 4 games. He's just so super efficient. He makes big plays in the passing game. They have the number 1 vertical passing game in the NFL statistically. He takes care of the ball, and he completes a high percentage of his passes. And that's what I think has made him so special the past month, is the fact that not only is he playing at a high level and they're making big plays in the passing game, but he's taking care of the ball, and he's on point. He's executing to a T in the passing game.
Yeah, and that 39-yard touchdown pass to Kayshon Boutte was first. I thought that was a great play call by McDaniels, because I think the Titans were expecting them to kind of use some clock after they got that first down. And that was just a good throw. That was a terrific catch. They have a really great connection going on right now. I mean, those guys are hitting cover 2 hole shots and back shoulder fades, plus the deep touchdowns. I mean, those two are hitting every. They had a really nice throw on the right sideline to Mac Hollins on one of their other touchdown drives as well. I think that first touchdown drive, right? But yeah, look, John, you and I have talked about this, and I know I sound like a broken record. Patriots win again today. 5th win of the year. It's also the 5th time Drake May has not had a turnover in a game. They've won all 5 of those games. It's not a coincidence. We keep saying it.
And you've been saying it all season long, man.
In the 2 games that he turned the ball over, they lost. Like, it's not a coincidence at all. And by the way, that Raiders team has totally imploded.
That loss looks bad now. I mean, they got shut out today.
And if May doesn't throw that pick to start the second half against the Raiders, they probably win that game. And obviously, there are a bunch of turnovers in the Pittsburgh game. I know we can play this game. Hey, they could be 7-0. They could be 4-3. You can play that game all day long. But I think him not turning the ball over is the biggest part of this offense. And they've gotten better offensive line play. And it's been kind of weird, because most of this year, the offensive line is pass blocked better than they've run blocked, which I don't know about you, but for me coming in, I thought it would be the reverse. And today, today I thought they run blocked better than they pass blocked. So when we saw Stevenson able to get going, and May, he did take a few big hits today. He got pulled that one time for the concussion screening, took another couple hits, especially that last sack off the edge where I don't know if Will Campbell didn't see the safety blitz or they slid the protection to the right and just got fooled. But he did take a few big hits, but he's been really, really impressive. Really, if you go back to that Carolina game, I mean, ever since then, it feels like almost every decision he's making is the right one. His throws are mostly on target. He's running at the right times, but not too much. I mean, he's really, again, he's taking a big step forward right in front of our eyes.
Huge step forward. And now I will say, I do have a criticism of his performance today. As on point as he was in the passing game, look, they need to manage him as a runner, John. I understand it's a hard thing to do. He had 62 yards rushing today. So you don't necessarily want to handcuff him and say, look, you only can play from the pocket. I understand that. That's not his game. He's athletic. Now, I've said this to people in recent weeks. There's a little bit of Brett Favre in his game, right? Like, he reminds me a lot of Brett Favre, not so much as a player, but more so as a personality, that aw shucks Southern personality, plays with a little bit of reckless abandon out there. And he took some shots today. And as you mentioned, he went into the blue tent, got checked for a concussion. That's my concern with this kid, man. He's taking better care of the ball, which we've talked about ad nauseum for months about the importance of him taking care of the ball. And as you said earlier, when he does, they're a completely different football team. They've taken care of business. But now the next phase in his development for me is he has got to find a way to protect himself. And I will say this, I think he's done a pretty good job of that this season, but not today. He took some shots today. Even that a couple of times when he got hit in the pocket and he got sacked, he landed awkwardly. He's a big kid. He's 6'4", but he's got to protect himself because the reality is if he doesn't, he's not going to finish the season, whether it be a concussion, whether it be some kind of a leg injury. I'm not being dramatic here, folks. I'm being honest. He took some hits today that made me uncomfortable. He needs to protect himself better.
Yeah, I think it's a great point because I think he's on the whole done a much better job protecting himself this year than last year. But today, again, 4 sacks plus the concussion play that he had, like that, you can't have that every single week. It's just not going to work over the course of, a full season. And that's something that you want to monitor going forward too, because we talked in training camp about the Patriots' lack of concerns, that they had quality starters at a lot of positions, but they didn't have a ton of depth. And I don't think any position was more glaring of quarterback. I mean, May has this top 10 NFL potential, and over the last month, he's played like a top 10 QB. When Josh Dobbs played in the preseason and training camp, things looked really bad. And I know he made the one play that he had to make today to convert the first down. So he has maybe made some progress behind the scenes. But I mean, look, you don't want to have to depend on that for 2 or 3 or 4 games later on this year if May gets hurt. So it's a good point by you. I mean, that's something that, he's making plays that help them win, but you do want to see him be a little bit safer out there than he was today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think for me, look, I get it. It's a big part of his game. That's a hard thing to manage as an offensive coordinator if you're Josh McDaniels. But I do think as he gets older as a player, he needs to learn to play more from the pocket. He needs to be able to expand the pocket. And when things break down, he needs to either take care of the ball or himself. And if he can do those two things, he can play the position at an elite level. But I just think when he takes off, and sometimes it's hard, right? Because he takes off, he's not in a position where he could slide and get down and protect himself. He's going to take a body shot, but you want to limit those body shots. And even during the game, the telecast, Catalan and McCourty and Davis are saying, oh, well, after he came back from being checked out for the concussion, they motioned out Stevenson, got into empty, and they're like, well, they're going to run quarterback draw. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, quarterback draw? The dude just got checked out for a concussion. Yeah. I hope not. I hope they're not running quarterback draw, and they didn't. But it is something that I think is worth noting and keeping an eye on, because if he can physically protect himself, obviously this team will continue to play at a high level. They'll be good offensively. They'll stay on schedule, and they'll make plays. As far as the defense is concerned, slow start. I mean, Tennessee played well in the first half. Cam Ward, you saw what people love about Cam Ward in the first half. Second half, completely different player. He looked more like the player he's been this season thus far. But the defense came out of the gate slow. They struggled early. Tennessee was able to move the football on him really throughout the first quarter and into the second quarter. But then they adjusted. and then they shut them down and kind of took over the game, that front with Landry and Chason. Of course, they get the defensive touchdown by Chason. Milton Williams joins the party with a sack. Are you concerned that this defense, they've gotten off to slow starts all year? We've talked about this. It hasn't come back to bite them in the ass of late, but are you concerned that these slow starts defensively could catch up with them here in the coming weeks?
Especially once they start playing better teams. Like they've played 7 games this year, John. They've given up points on the opening possession 5 times, 3 of those being touchdown drives. They gave up a field goal on the opening possession today and then a touchdown, by the way, on the second drive as well. And that second drive, to your point on Cam Ward, that 18-yard pass over the middle between Gonzalez and Spillane, terrific arm strength and a great throw.
He has terrific arm talent.
He does. And I think a lot of people think of arm talent too, and this is a thing with Drake May, that means you throw the ball 60 or 70 yards downfield, and sometimes you do, but sometimes it's you fit in a pass like he did on that 18-yard conversion there for a first down, which he then followed up with a 38-yard touchdown pass where Craig Woodson just got smoked. And we've seen this 2 weeks in a row, right? Jalen Hawkins is out for 2 weeks. Last week, Kyle Duggar on the opening play gets smoked for a 53-yard gain. Then today, right, they give up a 38-yard touchdown pass where Woodson, who, again, I like, but he gets turned around in coverage, gets fooled. They're missing Jalen Hawkins right now, especially early in these games. And, yeah, I mean, look, they only gave up 13 points today, and they only gave up 19 points last week. In Buffalo, what was it, 20 points they gave up? Like, on the whole, they're playing well, especially as these games go on, but the slow starts are like if there's one tangible thing you look at, that's what it is these slow starts. And I worry that, when you go and play Atlanta, does Drake London and Bijan Robinson get off to a good start and they kind of keep it going because they're good enough players? Or does Baker Mayfield get off to a really good start when you play Tampa Bay and he keeps it going because he's a really good player and that's a great team and he's playing at an MVP level? Like that's where it worries me when you play the Ravens. If Lamar Jackson is back by then and they're healthy, I know their record's not good right now, but you get Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson going, you can give up a lot of points. So we'll see if he's back, obviously, by then. So, yeah, I mean, I think tangibly that's something that they do need to figure out. And you talked last week about it maybe being a self-scout thing and whatnot for them going forward. But that's something for sure that, like, again, only 13 points today, but 10 of them on the first 2 drives, right? It's something they want to figure out going forward.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. And again, it could happen again next week against Cleveland at home, and it won't matter. But in 2 weeks from today, when Atlanta comes to town, if they have an opening drive score, that offense is good enough that if you go 3 and out, or let's say you pick up 1 or 2 first downs and then punt on your first possession, that offense is good enough that they can build on that lead. And now you're playing from behind, and now you're positioned to lose the game. So it's a problem. It's a problem. The 2 things that I think Mike Vrabel, they're off to a 5-2 start. It's great. But the 2 things I think he does need to work on is defensively, they need to get off to a better start, get teams off the field early in games. And again, the penalties, they were better today.
They were better, yeah.
But they still lead the league in penalties. So I think it's one of those things where those are 2 areas that, again, they're not affecting this football team right now. They're winning games. But down the road, Atlanta, Tampa, when you play Buffalo the second time, it could come back to bite you in the ass. And again, when you look at it, objectively speaking, you can get away with it against these teams, New Orleans and Tennessee. But the better teams, they're not going to let you off the hook. They could jump on you 10-0, 14-0, and now you're playing catch-up the rest of the game. As far as the penalties are concerned, and I did mention them, the Patriots penalty-wise, today finished with 5 penalties for 36 yards. Tennessee had 3 for 15. So somehow, week in and week out, without fail this season, they win the penalty battle. They still commit more penalties than the other team. Although a couple of weeks ago against Buffalo had more penalties than them. But, it's an area they got to clean up. But to your point, it didn't rear its ugly head today. It didn't affect the game.
No, it didn't, but that's another one of those things that, and I know Mike Vrabel has said this earlier this year, like, oh, how much, do teams with high penalties, does it really affect winning as much as people say it does? And I think it does affect winning, especially, again, when you get into those games against really good teams, right? Like I mentioned Tampa Bay before, not wanting to get off to a slow start defensively about them. Well, what if it's 3rd and 2 against that Tampa Bay defensive front and you have a false start and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 7 and you don't convert in a key spot and you lose the game? Like, that's where I think these things can come up. Like the Carlton Davis pass interference, I thought that was a bad call. He got hit in the face first. Like, sometimes that's going to happen. But, Will Campbell had a false start. You have penalties kind of like that are adding up, not the in the moment effort 50-50 penalties, if you will. You're having a lot of those either pre-snap penalties or penalties where it's just like, okay, these guys aren't fully thinking this through. So better today, definitely better today, but that is something they're going to want to continue to improve on as well.
Wide receivers today, Stephon Diggs leading the way with 7 catches for 69 yards. I'm going to say something that might come across as idiotic, which for me is not that much of a surprise. But he's been a non-factor since that Buffalo game. Last 2 weeks, he hasn't done anything. 7 for 69 today. Had a couple of big catches for him today. Wasn't really a factor last week. But after that Buffalo game, weren't you left wanting that on a weekly basis from him? Maybe not double-digit catches, but you'd think he would have found the end zone more the last couple of weeks. Am I overthinking this in saying that he's been a little bit disappointing since that Buffalo performance?
So my view on it, especially last week, more so even than this week, is it felt like, look, the first half, the Saints last week, those defensive backs looked clueless. I don't know what was going on back there. But once they kind of settled in, it felt like they were making an effort to take Diggs out of the game as much as they could. And we saw it open up things for Demario Douglas, for Kayshon Boutte. And remember, I mean, if Diggs, that phantom OPI call, that would have been another 50 yards last week that he caught downfield. So, and then this week, yeah, it's funny because 7 for 69 and he had the 24-yard catch, but outside of that 24-yard catch, didn't really pop much to me today.
Those are not number one receiver numbers.
And even
he's your number one receiver. He's got to give you more than that.
And you take the 24-yard catch out of it, and it's 6 catches for 45 yards the rest of the game, which is, not bad, but and not great. So I thought last week the Saints at least tried to kind of take him away, and we saw again Kayshon Boutte have a great game. Douglas today. I was thinking there'd be a little bit more from him. And same thing with Demario Douglas, 3 catches for 17 yards. And one of them, that one-handed catch, I think he ran, but I think he read the coverage wrong and bailed himself out with a great catch. Because, May was ready for him to sit down in that zone. He didn't sit. But Kyle Williams also a non-factor. So it's funny. They've got the vertical passing game going, but it's been with Kayshon Boutte and Matt Collins. And last week, Douglas was coming into the year. I thought it might be more Diggs and Kyle Williams. And that hasn't really materialized, especially for Diggs, since the Buffalo game.
Mentioned Boutte, 2 catches, 55 yards and a touchdown. Matt Collins, 2 catches, 49 yards. Hunter Henry, who has been, again, you could arguably say, if not their number one target, their 1B, 4 catches for 33 yards. So you like the distribution that they're feeding everybody, if you will. But at the end of the day, you want to see Stephon Diggs emerge and become that number one receiver. It is, after all, the reason why they signed him and brought him here. You want him to play at that level. You're just not seeing it right now. And it's a little frustrating because as the season wears on here, you're going to need him. Kayshon Boutte's emergence, specifically this year, has been awesome. And you mentioned it earlier, and I couldn't agree with you more. Him and May have a tremendous connection. I think Matt Collins is starting to get more implemented into this offense and becoming more of a focal point, both as a blocker and as a receiver. We know Hunter Henry's a reliable guy. He's going to be there. He's going to be in the mix. But you got to get more out of Diggs. And I know, again, he's coming off that torn ACL, but if he can do what he did at Buffalo in that Sunday night game, he should be able to give you something relatively similar on a week-to-week basis. I still think he has it in the tank. He's still a terrific route runner. He could still separate. Maybe he's not the big play receiver he was once upon a time, but he could still be a guy that gives you more than he's giving. And I think that's something that certainly as we go along here will be worth keeping an eye on. You are watching the Patriots Pulse postgame show. I'm your host, John Sirianidis. Patriots defeat the Tennessee Titans 31-13 to win their 3rd straight game. Feel free to join the conversation. We're coming to you live on Facebook, our X page, our YouTube page, and Twitch. So feel free to jump on. We would love to hear from you. We know you have a lot of other great options out there for post-game shows, but feel free to jump on with us. Share your thoughts on today's win. Tell us what you think. Tell us we suck, we're wrong, we don't know what we're talking about. Whatever you want to do. Say whatever you need to say. Get it off your chest. We're here for you. We're an option. Feel free to jump on. And as always, I'm joined by my partner, one of the best in the biz, WEI's John Lyons. And John, obviously they took care of business today, 3 in a row on the road. As I mentioned earlier, first time that this has been done in the regular season since the 1960s. So it is a big deal. Now you have the next 2 at home. You have Cleveland coming in, who's coming off a blowout win over Miami today. By the way, I'm going to put this out there, and I hate saying this because I don't like to talk about coaches getting fired, especially because you had 2 of them get fired in college football today with Napier in Florida and Norvell out at Colorado State. But Brian Callahan got canned last Monday. Are we going to get an announcement tomorrow out of South Florida that Mike McDaniel's gone? I mean, that was a pretty pitiful performance today.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. And I agree with you. I usually hate talking about like coaches losing their jobs because I think people are so cavalier about that and they don't think of the assistants, the families, any of that stuff.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. And I think that sucks. That's a bad part of the just sports media discourse. But I think you look at Miami, we've talked about this every single year under Mike McDaniel. They start out 4-0 or 5-1 and they fade down the stretch. This year, they just didn't start out good. So they're already fading and, they're one of the worst teams in the league. And one thing I think is worth mentioning, right? Brian Flores got fired in part because he was a little too mean to Tua. I think he was right all along, and he's been kind of vindicated this year. So,
and it sucks for them because they cut him the check now. They've paid him, and they're going to be on the hook for a lot of that money now. And they're in a really bad spot because if you fire McDaniel, whoever you bring in has to run a similar system because McDaniel, to his credit, whether you like the job he's done this year or not, he's done a really good job of getting a lot out of Tua. And I think now, if in fact Stephen Ross makes a decision to move on from him, well, now it becomes a matter of, okay, who do you hire next and who is the offensive coordinator? And more importantly, what does this team do with Tua Tagovailoa? Because, again, they're going to be on the hook for some money here. They decided to give him the bag, and that looks like it was a disastrous decision. Cleveland Browns are going to come into town next week with some momentum. They've been very Jekyll and Hyde. They've been very good at home. Win today, beat the Green Bay Packers at home, week 3. But then when they go on the road, they're a different team. Dylan Gabriel holding down the fort, a rookie quarterback. I think they're doing the best they can to manage the game for him. Their running game is really good. But I think that, again, this is another winnable game for the Patriots. Not to take anything away from the Cleveland Browns, but just like the last couple weeks, a game you should win, a game you should take care of business. Now, the 2 weeks after that, you've got Atlanta coming here. You got to go to Tampa. Those are going to be big-time tests for this team. But nonetheless, they're playing a Cleveland team that's going to be coming in with some momentum.
Yeah, and Cleveland, by the way, yards, 3rd best defense in the NFL. Like, that's good defense. You know how good Myles Garrett is. It's a good front. Like, it's going to be a little difficult for the Patriots to move the ball.
It's not going to be a cakewalk like people think.
It's not. And look, you and I talked about after that Buffalo win of if this Patriots team is the team we think they can be after that win with Vrabel and May, that they should win at least 3 out of their next 4 games, right? So they beat the Saints, they beat the Titans. That's 2. Can you win 1 out of the next 2? Because you're 5-2 right now. Can you be 6-3 after 9 games? I think that would be a terrific spot to be in. And it's interesting because you mentioned it, like Cleveland, they dominate Miami today. They've beaten Green Bay, different team on the road, but still a really good defense. And so I could see this being a game in Cleveland that's a 17-10 or 20-13, like a lower scoring game than I think a lot of Patriots fans expect. And I think Cleveland's offense, I mean, Judkins was good today, but I don't think that's a very good offense. They're near the bottom of the league in most categories. And then that Atlanta team, I'm really interested to see what they do against San Francisco tonight.
Yeah, that's going to tell us a lot about them and what we can expect when they come to town in a couple weeks. It was nice to see, though, going back to today's game, it was nice to see them get the running game going. Ramondre Stevenson finishes with 88 yards, but now you got to build off of that, right? Because, Charles Davis talked about this during the telecast, the importance of balance and being a balanced offensive attack. And look, today's NFL is still a 60-40 pass-to-run league, but the more you can be in that 55 to 60% pass-to-run range, the better off you'll be. You need to be able to run the football in this league, especially for a team like the Patriots that is amongst the league leaders in play action pass attempts. They run a lot of play action, a lot of bootlegs, a lot of frontside play action. So it's obviously a lot more effective. And you saw it today. Case in point, Matt Collins on an old school traditional play by the Patriots. They, for years, ran that play action with that frontside slant. They run that. May hits him on the move. It's a big gain for him. But the reason that they were able to complete that pass is because they were effectively running the football, which affected those linebackers. They were making their run reads, stepping up, and then May threw that ball behind him. So it's going to be vitally important moving forward the next few weeks, John, and really the rest of the season, that they build off of this performance in the run game. Because if they can do that, then this offense will really be humming at that point.
Yeah, and my philosophy on balance is the people that think that means you have to run the ball 25 times and throw it 25 times are wrong. What balance is about is, can you do both of the things when they are needed, right? I go back to the end of the Saints game. They were trying to run the clock out and they were forced to throw the ball because they couldn't run the ball, right? Then I go to today. When they had to run the clock out, they went for it on fourth down. They converted, right? They were able to move the ball, but also early in this game. And you know this, you've coached a long time. When you get the ball run right at you for a long period of time, it's demoralizing for a defense and it's demoralizing for an entire team. And we saw that today where it felt like, especially once the Patriots, they did it early, but then when they were able to do it later in the game too, Tennessee, and of course they lost Simmons during the game, but it felt like they got demoralized there. Then Tennessee had that turnover, and it was like the game. I mean, they still fought to their credit, but the game was essentially over because they couldn't stop the run in this game. So if they can do that consistently, then it's going to be a huge plus for them, and it's something they have. And I just think of Cleveland coming up. You don't want Myles Garrett to know, hey, we're going to throw the ball 45 times. Like, you want to be able to run the ball, in some cases run it at him, to kind of keep them off balance a little bit.
Yeah. No, you bring up a great point, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I've always been a firm believer that when you're going up against an elite level pass rusher like that, sometimes your best offense is to just run at him and to try to wear him down over the course of the game. Make him
defend the run.
Make him defend the run. Make him have to get off blocks. That'll slow him down. It will. As good of a pass rusher as he is, if you go out there next week and have Drake May throw the ball 35 times, well, now you're playing into his hands. He's going to be able to get into that sprinter stance and that wide five and get off the ball and get after it. Whereas if you run the football at him a little bit, you trap him, you block down on him, you kick him out, you make him have to earn his snaps. Now you could potentially slow him down, and he's not as much of a factor in the second half. Our good friend John Sapachetti checks in. He says, Drake May has completed 152 of 202 pass attempts this season. That's a 75.2 completion percentage. That's big time stuff.
And I think that speaks to his growth as a player. Like, he's being smarter with the ball. I mentioned earlier in the show the lack of turnovers. I think it speaks to his work with Josh McDaniels and Ashton Grant. They've made things as easy as possible for him. A lot of easy completions, and even their deep shots. Like today, Kayshon Boutte, wide open, right? Demario Douglas last weekend, wide open. And then there's other contested throws. The touchdown throw to Hooper today was a contested throw. The back shoulder fade to Boutte last week.
That was a great ball, by the way.
Yeah, it was a contested, even though a touchdown to Boutte, I think it was a 29-yarder last week. Like, that was a contested throw. So there's some contested ones in there, and that's part of the nature of offense. But I think they've, on the whole, made things pretty easy for him. And to that guy's point, like, you just look at the last 4 weeks. Carolina, only 3 incompletions. Buffalo, 8 incompletions. New Orleans, 8 incompletions. Today, 2 incompletions. Like, he's been, and you will just show off with it, John, so efficient. But he's not just being efficient alone. He's being efficient, and he's making some of those plus plays as well.
So I think the Josh McDaniels haters out there are going to think that I'm shitting on them, but I'm not. I'm just going to ask you this question, and I think I know what you're going to say. Would he be where he is right now after today if Josh McDaniels wasn't the offensive coordinator here?
No, I don't think so. Like, let's just say Alex Van Pelt stays. Right. Let's just say, like, Alex Van Pelt stays. Okay. Let's just would he be better than last year? Yes. Would he be at this level? No. And I think this is where the scheme, the play design, the game planning. And Travion Henderson also talked about this, where McDaniels gives them answers ahead of time and is really good at anticipating what's coming. I think for a young quarterback, that's especially important. So, no, I don't think so. I don't think he would be in the same place that he is now. And I think also, like, Mike Vrabel's involved with the offense, but because Josh has done it for so long and is so good at it, it allows Vrabel to focus maybe on some other areas, like their special teams are better than they were a year ago. I think that's part of this. Like, that's connected to this as well. We've seen their defense adjust really well during games. I know they need to start better. We talked about it, but I think that's connected to this as well. When you know, hey, these guys on offense, sure, I'm involved, but they can handle it. It allows you to do other stuff as well. So no, I don't think he would be in this. I think he would be better, no doubt about it, but he would not be in the same place. And I would add the same thing if they had drafted Ashton Genty instead of Will Campbell at 4. I don't think May would be as good this year because Will Campbell's been really good protecting his blind side on the whole.
He has. I mean,
Had the false start today, I know, when he had the one
Right.
sack that I don't. Again, that might have been a shift protection call. I'm not sure, but on the whole, the dude for a rookie left tackle has been good.
he's played really well. I'm glad the short arms haven't hindered him.
I told
Adam
you,
Glazer.
feet in his hands. New England Football Journal told you folks all along. Watch
We
his feet in
did.
his hands. We
We've
told
been,
you.
we were saying it all off season during our draft stuff, and again, I'm not going to take a victory lap. You and I have been in this business too long
way to
take
go.
victory laps. Right, long way to go, but he's been really good today, and thus far, rather. I know today he gave up the sack, but look, he's not going to play flawless week in and week out.
And no left tackle.
There are a lot of good players in this league. Right, they're going to get theirs. It's going to happen, but as a whole, he's been really good. Adam Glazer joins us. Good game, guys. Keep it going. Yes, absolutely. We hope the Patriots can keep it going. By the way, John, you were a longtime wide receivers coach at the collegiate level. Care to break down Todd Downing's dance after the May touchdown pass to Booty? I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, thankfully awesome. There's no film I think that exists of any of my sideline celebrations after touchdowns, which is
was it like Downing? So
not quite. No, I was usually more like
elite.
I was in I'd be a fist pump guy. Occasionally, I'd be the big whirling fist pump guy. Something like that. And I will say, look, their receivers,
the game in the moment.
Yeah, and especially their receivers and the young guy. To Todd Downing's credit, these guys are fitting in. They're progressing. They still have some bad habits. Like Stephon Diggs today caught a pass over the middle and ran backwards to try to gain yards. Like, that's a bad habit. Mac Hollins did that last week. Obviously, Demario Douglas did at the end of the Steelers game. We've seen it. Like, that's a bad habit, but we're not seeing a lot of drops. We're not seeing a lot of wrong routes, right? Like, I still think they're probably one guy short in that receiver room, like an elite. And even if it's not, like, I don't see, it doesn't have to be Justin Jefferson or AJ Brown, but just a true number one, like if Diggs are in his prime type guy. I think they're still short that guy, but the guys they have, I mean, Booty's made a ton of progress. A lot of that credit is to him too. But a lot of the stuff, as far as a coaching perspectives go, the Patriots receivers have done a good job on the whole this year. I think the one guy left I'd like to see somehow unlocked a little bit is Kyle Williams. And McDaniels has said he's making progress. It's natural. I'd like to see more. And just one last point. These receivers block their ass off in the run game and downfield after someone else has caught the ball. Not only is that the sign of professionalism and just good teammates, I think that's connected to Vrabel and McDaniels and especially Todd Downing as well. That's been something that's been really nice to see too.
It's interesting that you bring up Kyle Williams because I think they have to start using him in a variety of ways. It's either that or when you're in plus territory, he's in the game and you're taking your shot with him. I think to expect him as a rookie to produce in this offense, and we've heard the stories through the years, how hard this offense is to learn from a passing game concept standpoint. I think to expect this kid to come in and play at a high level, I've always felt all along, John, even after they drafted him, and admittedly, I'll say this, I didn't love him at Washington State. I thought he was a little bit of a one-trick pony. I know a lot of people in the media around here loved him. I know all the part-time draft experts loved him, but the reality is you're seeing – I had hesitations with the pick because the reason I feel he was a one-trick pony was I thought at Washington State he did a lot for you. He was dynamic as a vertical playmaker, but I didn't see enough on tape from him underneath. I didn't see enough of him working the middle of the field. Yes, he can make some plays for you in the perimeter screen game. He was a really good route runner who can uncover and stack. He could do all of those things vertically. But I thought that that's why they drafted him ultimately, to give them that potential big play element. They haven't unlocked that so far. And so I think we're too far along in the season now. You can bring him along, but I think we're too far along in the season now to think that this kid's going to be a diverse piece that you're going to move around in terms of alignment and run a variety of different route concepts with him. I think your best bet with him, if you want to get him going, is to try to get him going vertically, and then to really emphasize this offseason and next year developing him as a receiver who can do multiple things.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Kyle Williams because we talked at the draft about might have been the best release guy at the line of all the receivers in the draft. Terrific downfield speed, but you didn't see a ton in the short to intermediate area. Again, no. It wasn't that
all
we
vertical, slot, fade, post, dig.
Exactly.
Glance.
And I think a lot of that was what Washington State wanted to do. Like, they had this guy that was great at the line and could outrun everyone. Like, I don't blame him, but I think that's something that if you're going to play in the NFL, you got to kind of work that into your game. And I think that's probably what we're seeing, is he's still working that into his game. And I think the other piece of this is they haven't needed him to be a deep shot guy because Kayshon Boutte's been terrific as a deep shot guy. So why would you take Boutte off the field to do it? And I know Douglas had the 51-yarder or 53-yarder last week, and that was a terrific route. And it was, the Saints were totally fooled. But Boutte's been the guy, and he's been great with those downfield throws and those downfield shots. So I think it's a combination of, like, they have a guy who's doing it really well, and Williams, I don't think, has rounded his game off enough. And I like your suggestion, get to the 40-yard line, put him in and get the ball in his hand. Like, I don't know if wide receiver screens are the answer with him because he's not that big, but maybe, or jet sweeps, or even just design stuff to get the ball in his hands, just to kind of get him going a little bit. That might be something they can work on over the next few weeks.
I think so much of the emphasis has been on getting Pop going, and I think they are. You've seen it the last couple weeks, and certainly I wouldn't mind if that was the focal point to continue to get Pop Douglas more involved in this offense. But I agree with you. I think as we go along here, you need all hands on deck. All your playmakers have to be available to make plays. That includes Kyle Williams. He has to be that guy. I have to ask you the obligatory AFC question. Who's the best team in the AFC, and where do they stack up? I'm asking you a question that was popular last week. It came up on one of the other post-game shows. But who, in your opinion, who is the best team in the AFC, and where do the Patriots fit into this AFC puzzle?
It's going to sound cliche, and I know they're only, 4-3 or whatever. I think it's the Chiefs. I mean, and I think the way they've come on, right? Because starting the year, right, they lose that opening Friday night game to the Chargers. Chargers looked flat out better than them that night. Then they lose a game to Philadelphia where it felt like that was a close enough game, but it felt like Philly was the better team. Like, you're watching it, like, all right, Philly's better than these guys. And then they've really turned it around. And that Giants game wasn't pretty, but maybe it was just kind of a step in the right direction for them. And you look at the last couple of weeks, I mean, to beat Detroit convincingly like they did, I thought that was a great win. Obviously, then they dominate the Raiders. And look, even the Raiders, I know they're 2-5. They're not a good team. They've played the Chiefs tough year after year after. Even when the Chiefs have been a Super Bowl winning team, the Raiders have played them tough.
Yep.
Exactly. They almost beat them. What was it? Black Friday last year. They had the ball with a chance to win the game against them at Arrowhead. Yeah. So I think it's the Chiefs right now. I still like the Chargers a lot. I mean, I know they maybe not quite as great as they were earlier this year, but I like the Chargers a lot. I think they're really good. Indy, Daniel Jones has been good enough, but Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor have been terrific. So I look at the Patriots, like, I put them behind Kansas City, behind the Chargers, behind the Colts, but I think it's close. And then it's kind of Patriots, Bills, or like those next couple teams. And I give the Pats the edge because they beat the Bills, but also the Bills are still a great team, and they were playing without Ed Oliver that night. Like, they're still really good.
See, we answer that question here. Who's the best team in the AFC? We answer it.
I know. Again, I know Kansas City 4-3. It's just they're the last few weeks.
I agree with you. The way they've played the last 2 weeks, beating Detroit 30-17 last Sunday night, thumping the Raiders today 31-0. They look dominant. You get Rashee Rice is back now after his 6-game suspension. Now that offense all of a sudden is really diverse, hard to defend because you got to defend Rice, you got to defend Worthy, you got to defend Hollywood Brown, you still have to defend Kelsey. And oh, by the way, when they need to buckle down and get physical and run the football, you have Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And Mahomes is Mahomes the last 2 weeks is playing at a level that, quite frankly, I don't think we've seen him play the last 2 years.
Yeah,
He's
that's a good
playing
point.
clean. He's playing efficient. He's taking care of the ball, which has always been a problem with him despite his greatness. If he plays like this on a week-to-week basis, they're the best team in the AFC, and they're obviously one of the best 3 teams in the league. I still think you got to slot Buffalo in at 2, even though they've lost 2 in a row. They have the bye this week. They're 4-2, but I still think Josh Allen, that defense, you get Ed Oliver back, they're healthy. They're going to be tough to play against, especially if you have to play them there. I admittedly, look, I don't buy Indiana Jones and the Colts. I just don't. I just think for me, their bubble's going to burst at some point. No offense to Shane Steichen and his offensive coordinator, the owner there that's standing on the sideline with a headset on and a call sheet. I don't get that.
And I will just say 1 point on the Colts, because I thought them losing that close game to the Rams was actually, I don't want to say moral victory, but like to go there and play them that tough, I thought was good. But you look at their wins, the Denver win was a great win for the Colts, but they blow out Miami, who might be the worst team in the league. They blow out Tennessee, who might be the second worst team in the league. They blow out the Raiders, who might be the third worst team in the league. And then they win a close game over Arizona so they also have benefited themselves, much like the Patriots have, from a pretty soft schedule so far.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up. And look, we're not going to sit here and say that the Patriots haven't been the beneficiary of that either. Both teams are off to surprising starts, but we'll see. The Colts are currently in Los Angeles to take on the Chargers, so we'll see how that game plays out. But I have a hard time buying them. And then the question is, okay, from there, where do the Patriots slot in? I would put the Chargers ahead of them. I agree with you, especially if they win today. But I would put the Patriots ahead of Jacksonville, who's lost 2 in a row and got blown out today. Looks like their bubble is about to burst. And Baltimore's a mess right now, man. They're a dumpster fire. They have the bye this week. I don't know what Lamar's status is. He could be back next week. They host the Bears at home. If he is back, I think they could win that game, despite Chicago winning today and being 4-2. But outside of that, it's wide open. And it begs the question, if this Patriots team can keep this going, they're going to be a playoff team. Now the question is, does the conversation pivot to them being a Super Bowl contender? I think we're we'd be getting way too ahead of ourselves if we start throwing that out. They're ahead of schedule in terms of their rebuild, but they're not in that conversation right now. Could they be there by the end of the year? Yes, but you'd have to really sell me on that right now.
I think they're also kind of matchup dependent in the playoffs. Like right now, if the playoff, and I know that a stupid phrase, right? If the playoffs started today, they'd be the 2 seed and they'd be playing Jacksonville in the wild card round, and I would pick them to win that game. I think they would. But if they had to play the Chargers in the divisional round, whether it was on the road at home, or they had to play the Chiefs, who, by the way, the Chiefs right now are the 8 seed. I don't think they're going to stay the 8 seed for long. No. Or if they had to go into Denver and
let's not forget about Denver either, man. They went into Philly. I know a lot of people are going to look at that ugly loss against the Jets in England last week, but they also went into Philly and won 2 weeks ago. Let's not sleep on them. They've got Sean Payton, who's one of the best coaches in the league.
Won a Super Bowl.
And they have an elite caliber defense. That defense is big time.
And that's the thing. Like, I would pick the Patriots to beat the Jaguars there, and I would pick them to beat the Steelers in a playoff game. I probably would even pick them to beat the Colts, but I wouldn't pick them to beat the Chargers. I wouldn't pick them to beat Buffalo, despite the win a couple weeks ago. I don't think I would pick them to beat Denver. That might depend on where it is. I would not pick them to beat Kansas City. So, and who knows? And look, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if Joe Burrow comes back this year and Cincinnati sneaks in the playoffs and you got to play that offense, like, again, I think Cincinnati is a very thin team and their defense stinks, but they can catch fire and score 40 in a game.
Well, especially if he's back.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. So I think the Patriots are very matchup dependent. Whereas, in the dynasty years, we're used to it. Didn't matter who they played.
Didn't matter who it was, right?
You'd pick them to win. Now, again, just where they are in their rebuild. They're a good team. They won their 5th game today, already more than last year. Big step forward already this year. But when you think about playoff scenarios and whatnot, again, I think they're a little they're a playoff team. It's just a little matchup dependent on how far they'd go.
Yeah, like I said, I think that Atlanta game, that Tampa Bay game, those are going to be barometer games for them. We're going to get a pretty good idea of who they really are after next week. I think they win next week. They get to 6-2, but after that, I think those two games are going to tell us a lot about who they are moving forward, because those are two pretty good football teams. Now, we all know Atlanta can be helter-skelter, but Tampa Bay is a legitimate contender, kind of the team that nobody talks about in the NFC. People are so hyper-focused on Philadelphia and San Francisco and Green Bay, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are pretty good, and Detroit, might I add. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a good football team who could find themselves in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Todd Bowles has done a great job there. Baker Mayfield's playing at an MVP level. You can't sleep on them either.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Tampa Bay right now is the best team in the NFC. And I know they had that close loss to Philly where Philly had the big lead at halftime and Tampa got back into it. But I mean, that I want to see that game tomorrow night, Tampa and Detroit, sneaky potential NFC championship game preview. And I know, again, Philly, they win today in Minnesota. They're maybe back on track. That's a terrific roster. But just again, Detroit's really good and Tampa is a terrific football team. And that's the thing about the Patriots schedule, right? Like, we see this like, oh, it's the easiest schedule left. Well, it's first of all, Patriots are a very young team, so there's no guarantee they're just going to win these games. And second of all, is Atlanta really as easy as game as people think it is? Like Baltimore,
No.
and I know, but Baltimore, if Jackson's back, that's a difficult game, right?
Very
all
difficult.
of a sudden,
Burrow could be back by the time they go to Cincinnati.
all of a sudden, the New York Giants are pretty good, right? Like, and I know who knows if that'll last, but with Jackson Dart scattered, like all of a sudden, they're pretty good. Like and if the Dolphins fire Mike McDaniel, I don't know, what if the interim guy gets them on track a little bit? Like, again, it's an easy schedule, but I don't know if we can sit here and be like, oh, it's this layup thing that maybe some folks think it is.
No, there's tough games baked in there. Atlanta, Tampa,
Even Cleveland,
Baltimore,
like that's
Cincinnati.
a tough game next.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game next week because, as you said earlier in the show, they play good defense.
Yeah,
and if they get that ground game going, and the Patriots have been very good against the run, so that'll be a strength going up against this Cleveland offense. But if they were to get that ground game going, they can play a little bit of keep away. They get some pressure on Drake May. Patriots, they could be in for it. One thing I will say, that they won't really blow anybody out the rest of the way. They're going to be in tight games. They're not going to do what they did against Carolina. And even today, the score's a little deceiving because Tennessee kind of fell apart in the second half, but that was a close game until the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I think that you're right. They're going to be matchup dependent. Depends on who they play. Depends on where it is. That's who they are right now. And they're not a team that's going to blow people out. They're going to have to win close games in order to win. Yes, you can get better at that. They've proven that they can do that this season, but they're not a team that's quite there yet where you can say, okay, if they play Kansas City, if they play Buffalo, if they play the Chargers or Denver, that, yeah, they can go to those places and win. And I'll give you another team that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but if they win tomorrow night, Houston Texans, they play really good defense. If they can get C.J. Stroud going and that offense going, they can come back, potentially win that division. They're another team you may not want to play. They're battle tested as well. All right, John, some final thoughts here before we wrap it up.
Yeah, final thought for me. I mean, a good win to build on what they've done. 4 wins in a row now. They're definitely headed in the right direction. And I think we can officially say the Patriots are a good football team now, right? They might not be elite, they might not be great, but they were terrible the last 2 years. They are officially a good football team. That's nice to see. And I think the biggest evidence today of that is that double score, end of the first half touchdown, come out with a touchdown to start the second half. Then you, of course, force a turnover and pile on. But those 2 drives to score there, that's something that good football teams will do on a consistent basis. That was great to see. And it was nice to see them build on not just what they did last week in New Orleans, but this is a continuation of the Buffalo win. Then you have the New Orleans win, obviously the Carolina win before that. Now this win. It's been a really overall zoom out. It's been a really good month of football for the Patriots.
It has. And for me, for a final thought, you mentioned the touchdown, the defensive score. Kayvon Chaisson is one of their best free agent signings.
Yeah,
he has been terrific for them. He's only 25. I love the signing when they made it because you were basically taking a flyer on a guy who was still a young player and just needed to end up in the right situation, right system. He was good in Vegas last year. They didn't want to re-sign him. You bring him here. He's having a terrific year for them. He's been a nice compliment to Harold Landry. He has been one of their best free agent signings. He's a guy with length, athleticism. He's explosive. He could finish at the quarterback. And you saw it today. I mean, Cam Ward is a turnover waiting to happen this season. But nonetheless, he makes that play, he scoops, he scores. He has been a very impactful player for them and a guy that I don't think should fly under the radar because as much as Landry and Milton Williams and Robert Spillane and Carlton Davis, all those free agent signings they made on that side of the ball, as much as those guys are going to garner a lot of the attention, don't sleep on the K'Lavon Chaisson signing. He has been good for them. He's been impactful for them. And in my opinion, I think he's young enough. You want to keep this guy around for a while because he's finally starting to enter his prime and he's finally starting to play at the level that I think we all thought he could play at when the Jacksonville Jaguars drafted him out of LSU. All right. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Patriots Pulse postgame show. John and I will be back with you again next week. Until then, have a happy, safe, and healthy week. And we'll talk to you next week. Peace.